It is time for part 2 of my stop motion tutorial series. And for today's episode, we're going to utilize some of the things that I said in the last video, and we're going to do a quick animation and do some quick editing. First, we're going to assemble our set for the video. This is one of the key topics I talked about in part 1 of the series, and I will leave a link to the video I did on making this set that you see on screen. And just like I mentioned in part 1, we're going to turn on our lights and leave it on for a bit. We can't forget to bring the tripod, the extra light that we're going to be using for this video, and the best tool, the clicker. And of course, we need our figures for our stop motion animation. For this video, we're going to be using Kong and Godzilla. And of course, we're going to be doing this on the table like mentioned in part 1. But there's one thing I forgot to mention in that video, and that is sitting on a chair while you animate. Speaking of chairs, that brings me to today's sponsor. As a stop motion animator, I often find myself in discomfort when working on my videos. I always give advice about animation, but never talk about my journey to comfort. The chair I currently use, I've been really uncomfortable on. I'm usually sitting down for hours, but thanks to Fexlispot, I have a fresh new setup that I've been loving, the Fexlispot C7 Max. One of my favorite features is the adjustable backrest. Using the lever, I'm able to get into different positions I need for a smooth workflow. The backrest locks at 93 degrees, helping me to maintain an upright position while I'm at my desk. When it's time for a break, the adjustable headrest can be tilted to an ideal angle while relaxing and reviewing my work. The C7 has two different cushion options, foam or mesh. I chose foam because of its adaptive comfort that it provides. I even noticed the pressure distribution throughout the cushion when my fingers fall over on the chair. When comparing the C7 Max to other chairs, you can see that it's a huge upgrade. It's bigger and wider than regular chairs, providing more room and better support. After adjusting, I can easily sit on the chair and have enough space to cross my legs. It even has the option to tilt forward, providing better blood circulation through long hours of sitting. Whether I'm working at my desk or animating, these 3D armrests can be tailored for maximum relaxation and support. This is the best time to buy a Fexlispot C7 Max. There is a 30-day return policy for a risk-free trial, plus their 10-year warranty with direct replacement for damaged parts. If you plan on buying a C7 Max, use my exclusive code C730 to enjoy a $30 discount off your order. But before we get into the animation, there's a few more things I gotta mention. One thing I tell people before they animate is to plan out your action and key moments. One way I do that is by simply playing with the figures and seeing what can work and what can't work. And another thing I do is storyboard actions. For this video, I only wrote out 7 points that I'm gonna follow to be organized when filming. For this test video, I'm gonna be utilizing my small LED light. Reason being is gonna help the setting and also help Godzilla's atomic breath really pop in the video. So this is the behind the scenes of me filming some of the animation. As you see, I have my grid on when filming and the onion skin as well. These are really important features because it helps me stay in place and lets me see the previous action when filming, so I know where to move next. Another thing that I notice with a lot of beginners is the frustration of having to film something again because it didn't come out good or to your liking. And I understand that, but even with me, someone who's been doing it for 17 years has to redo shots time to time, so don't feel discouraged if you have to do it again. Also, as you see, when I move the figure, I try to utilize the articulation on it to maximize the movement. I know some figures don't have a lot of mobility, so in that case you work around it with editing and camera angles. And this is the animation we worked on, something short and simple for the video. I think it's good, but we can improve it with some edits. And that brings us to the next part of this video, and that's editing. We're going to be doing that in CapCut. Before we get into editing, I want to mention first, these are the effects and sounds that I use for the video. And for those who are going to ask how did I import them, I simply screen recorded them, but with that out the way, let's get into editing. From the start, I want to say I'm using CapCut Pro, so I will be using some features that people who don't have CapCut Pro can't use. But anyway, the first thing I like to do is split up my animation into different sections so it's easier to edit. After that, I then work on color grading. I do that by clicking filters. I personally use high saturation. Then I go to adjust and mess around with the brightness, contrast, saturation, sharpen, highlights, all that. It's really a personal preference. The reason why I do is because I really feel like it makes it look better compared to the raw footage, as you can see on screen right here. But like I said in part 1, it's up to personal preference. It's really up to you to decide what works for you and what doesn't work for you, and finding out what you like and don't like. But yeah, with those adjustments, I then stretch out the effect all the way to the end of the timeline. Now it's time to add some effects. I went to the video effects in CapCut and decided to use vignette. To me, it makes the video look more focused and a bit eerie. Then I used the blue glitch effect for the part where Godzilla is charging up his heat ray. Now this is a pro feature effect that I am using, so if you don't have CapCut Pro, you won't be able to use it. But don't worry, I have a video on how to make the dorsal fins of Godzilla glow, so check that out after this video. The links will be in the description down below. The next effect I will be using is the tracking shot 2 effect. This effect zooms in and outward of the scene. I like this because it zooms in on Godzilla shooting out the blast and then zooms out when I want a fuller shot. But now it's time to add the heat ray effect. Go to overlay and then add overlay, and that's when you import your effect. Don't forget to click splice and filter when adding in your effect to get rid of the background. Then from there, you then want to adjust and reframe the effect to the correct position. Then I duplicated the heat ray for the next scene, reframe it to make it look like it's firing from a distance even though the figures are right next to each other. It's kind of like an illusion. Now we're adding an explosion effect when the blast hits Kong. I did the same steps as before with the overlay, splice, then filter, but now I'm going to add some color to it. I'm going to be using the same strategy before with the filter and adjust to make it look better. Next thing I want to do is add some sparks and embers after the explosion fades away. I went to effects and added both spark and by the fireplace. You can find these in the spark section. I like how I made it look a bit darker and more suspenseful. Now for the scene where Kong gets hit by the blast, I'm adding some keyframes. I placed one at the very beginning of the scene, then zoomed in, and then went to the very end, zoomed out, and placed a keyframe. This gives a similar effect to the tracking shot I did earlier with Godzilla. The next part is now adding audio. You just click audio and then select extract and pick what video sound you want to add from your camera roll. I then cut and pasted it at the exact spot I wanted and added a little fade effect to the Kong roar. CapCut also has their own sounds to use. I actually used an explosion sound for this video. I just went to sound effects, typed in explosion, and picked the one I thought was best. After that, I just added Godzilla's roar to the video. Keep in mind, when editing, you will discover new things and want to experiment, and that's the fun part. So again, this might work for me, but for you, you might want to try something different. But with that being said, let's check out the finished product. And that brings us to the end of part 2 of the series. Make sure to follow me on Instagram at UnravelPicturesTM, and if any brands or fans want to get into contact with me, this is my business email on screen. Comment below things you guys want me to teach in part 3, and let me know what I can do better to improve these videos. Thank you all for watching, and subscribe for more tutorial videos.